Hey there, pickleballers. Welcome to the Pickle Fit podcast, where we're not just chasing dinks, drops, and drives. We're chasing strength, mobility, and injury-proof bodies that actually hold up past 50. I'm your host, Coach Kevin. I'm a healthy aging expert, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach, and the guy who still thinks he's gonna go pro one of these days. Each week, we serve up simple, actionable tips on strength training, mobility, and nutrition, because if you want to dominate the court, it all starts with what you're doing off the court. So grab your paddle, lace up those sneakers, and get ready to move better, play harder, and stay in the game for life. This is Pickle Fit. Let's roll. All right, folks, welcome back to the Pickle Fit podcast. Today, I want to talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough attention in the pickleball world, and that is fueling your body like an athlete. If you're over 50, here's the truth. Your margin for error gets smaller and smaller with every passing year when it comes to nutritional strategies. You can't just skip breakfast, play 4 hours of rec, and hope for the best. You can't just go into a tournament with a bag of trail mix and a bottle of Gatorade and expect to feel like a beast on the court. You need energy, you need stamina, you need recovery. And that starts not with supplements or sports drinks, but with what you're eating before, during, and after you play. You're not fueling like your 25-year-old self anymore. You're fueling like an athlete with wisdom and maybe even a few creaky joints to protect. So let's break this down. And we'll start here. Let's talk about what to eat before you play. Think of this like pregame prep. You're not going to fuel the same way for a casual 1-hour game as you would for a fuel day tournament. Let's break it down with some general guidelines. Your body needs carbs for quick energy. You need some protein to stabilize energy levels and to preserve muscle, and you want to keep your fats low pre-match because that's going to slow your digestion. So we want something with some carbs for that quick energy. We want a little bit of protein in there to help stabilize those energy levels. As we've discussed in previous episodes, we certainly want that protein to help preserve muscles, and we want to keep those pre-play fats kind of low. So we don't want high fats here before we roll into a game. So if you're playing in the morning, here's a good solid meal. So I would do this maybe an hour before I play, and this could vary based on your personal preference. That could be 1 hour before you play, 2 hours before you play, 30 minutes before you play, whatever works for you. But here's one of my go-to breakfasts before I go out and play pickleball. It's going to be my oatmeal. I like to have real whole oats, not the instant oats. So I buy these sprouted organic oats. So I've got my oatmeal. I'll throw in there some blueberries. I always put a little chia seeds and a little pumpkin seeds in there. So I'm getting a little bit of fat in there, but not a whole lot. And I'm always going to throw in a scoop of protein. So that's a good go-to pre-game sort of an idea. Oatmeal with some fruit, especially berries, a scoop of protein. Like I said, I throw some chia seeds and pumpkin seeds in mine every single time. That's a bonus if you want to do that. Another way you could do is you could really take most of those ingredients and throw them into a blender with either some water, some milk, or plant-based milk, whatever your preference is, maybe even juice. Blend that all up and chug it down if you want to do something on the go. So there you go. Some other ideas might be, scrambled eggs with toast and some berries or a banana. So scrambled eggs, remember, going to be a little higher in fat, but we can offset that with having some toast and some fruit with that. We could have, say, Greek yogurt, great source of protein there, with maybe some honey and some fruit again. But just some ideas for you. 1 to 2 hours before you're playing, get in those carbs, get in a little bit of protein, and keep the fat kind of low. Now, those of you that are playing in the afternoon, we got to have something we're going to eat before our afternoon play. So this is our lunchtime. I'm thinking turkey sandwich with an apple. I'm thinking chicken, rice, and veggies. Again, we're following that same blueprint, right? I want plenty of good carbs, good quality carbs. I want a little bit of protein, and I want to keep my fat kind of low. A lot of times what will happen is, say, I eat my lunch at noon, but I don't play until 2. Or maybe 3. Well, in that case, I'm going to have some sort of small carb-based snack, 30 minutes for me, probably 30 minutes before I play. But again, depending on your digestion, you may prefer to have that an hour before play. You might prefer to have that 15 minutes before play. But somewhere in that 30-ish minutes before you play, I like having maybe a piece of fruit or an energy bar. I have these Atlas protein bars I really like. I might munch one of those. Rice cake, a really good source of just really quick carb. Maybe throw a little nut butter on there. But think of it this way. Your proteins are building the house, right, the muscle, but your carbs are going to bring the workers to get the job done. So when it comes to pregame fueling, that's how I want you to think of this. Let's get those quality carbs in there. Let's bring a little bit of protein along and keep our fats a little bit low. Now, what to eat and drink during play, this is a little bit different. And this is where a lot of players and a lot of sports go wrong. They don't fuel at all during play. And then they wonder why they hit a wall halfway through a tournament. So those of you that are rec play folks and you're playing for 2 hours or less, let's say, you probably don't need to eat anything. Now, if you're somebody who has problems with blood sugar, you may want to keep a snack, just a high carb type snack in your bag. You can just kind of crunch that down and an hour, 90 minutes into your play, whatever that takes, kind of keep that blood sugar regulated. But for most of us, if we're playing rec level under 2 hours, probably don't need to really worry about fuel other than you really want to prioritize hydration. I'm a big fan. I always bring water with electrolytes. Even when I'm playing indoor, even if it's not hot or humid, I've always got my water with some electrolytes in there. So a little bit of sodium, a little bit of potassium in there. There's tons of different options there. Do your research. Some are better than others if you're going to get a prepackaged one. I'd personally stay away from the Gatorades and the Under Armour, these, neon blue, neon orange drinks. That's pretty much crap. If you're a serious tournament player and that's your go-to and that's what you're used to, don't change that up. But for the rest of us, if that's your go-to hydration, get rid of that. Try something a little healthier. Now, those of you that are playing longer rec, or maybe you're doing, one of those animals that likes to do back-to-back 2-hour rec play blocks, bring a banana, bring a granola bar, bring some sort of, again, an electrolyte drink, but bring some kind of carby snack to do in between those rec play sessions. All right, so now let's talk about those of you that are doing serious tournament play. You guys want to eat small carb-focused snacks throughout the day, in between matches. Obviously not during your matches. I mean, I guess if you have a timeout and you want to take a couple bites, sure. I'm actually a big fan of really any carby thing, but those little goos or those things that like marathon runners use all the time, the little goos or little energy chews, things like that. Those are really quick sources of carbs. You might have things like pretzels. You could have applesauce in a pouch that you can just kind of suck it down. You can, again, bananas are fantastic for in between match snacks. So just think again, high carb, and also this is not a place to experiment. If you're an experienced tournament player, you know this. We're not going to bring something brand new to fuel ourselves in between matches on tournament day. We're going to experiment during our rec play with what we're going to eat. We want to make sure that our stomach is comfortable with this and that we feel light on our feet with what we're fueling ourselves with. But you got to be focused on fueling yourself throughout the day if you want to perform well in that last match as you do in the first match. And the other thing here is you guys, when it comes to hydration, you want to be sipping steadily. You don't want to be chugging. We don't want to be chugging water, walking out and sloshing all around. And again, consider some sort of electrolyte tablet, some sort of electrolyte drinks. I like the LMNT drinks, but there's Liquid IV. There's a bunch of them out there. Do your research. Find a electrolyte drink or tablet or powder that you really like. Again, don't bring anything new to tournaments. You should already know this, but whatever you're going to use an LMNT or a Liquid IV or one of these salt tablets, do that in rec play. Do it several times. Make sure that you're comfortable with that and that feels good for you. And remember that if you're not fueling during your tournament, your body will absolutely start stealing energy from your performance. Let me say that again. If you do not fuel correctly during your tournament play, your body's absolutely going to start stealing energy from somewhere, and that's going to come from your performance. That's the reality of that. So you should absolutely have a nutrition strategy that works for you, that you have practiced in your rec play, and that you're comfortable with these foods. And then when tournament day comes around, you're going to have that strategy of just slow and steady, taking those small sips, small bites of some carb-based foods throughout. Okay. So that's what to eat to fuel your rec plays, what to eat to fuel your tournament plays. Let's talk a little bit about what we eat after we play. So now we're in recovery mode. And the goal here is, of course, we want to rehydrate, we want to refill muscle glycogen, and we want to repair some muscle tissue. And if you're over 50, this part's non-negotiable. Recovery takes longer, so give your body what it needs to bounce back faster. Don't handicap yourself by finishing play and going home and having beer, having wine, celebrating perhaps, and just forgetting to eat. We want a post-play fuel formula. And here's what I would suggest. You want to eat within 60 to 90 minutes of post-play. And just like pre-fueling, we're going to prioritize protein and carbs, and then we're going to add in some healthy fats after the game, not before. So some examples are going to be, I love a protein shake with fruit. So a protein shake and a banana is pretty much a go-to after any intense workout for me. My go-to is a protein shake, scoop of creatine, and a banana. Chicken and sweet potato, another big one, or ground meat, ground beef, ground buffalo, and sweet potato, another big one. Any kind of a meat wrap, a salmon wrap for some of you. Fruit, I love to have fruit post-play, but keep in mind what we're really looking for is a focus on protein and carb. And then as we're getting past that 60, 90 minute after post-play, that's when we want to start bringing back in the healthy fats again. And again, if you've been sweating hard, if you've been playing hard, either a pinch of sea salt or some sort of electrolytes fluid powder to replenish those electrolytes, absolutely critical. So you're going to be drinking those probably before, during, and after any serious session. And look, if you skip this part, your next game's going to suffer, and so will your joints. All right, so let's talk about what not to do. I've already said this, but don't chug sugar-laden sports drinks unless you're really playing at a very high level and you're playing all day long and that's already your go-to. Maybe it's a part of your routine. You get a pass, but for the rest of us, no, let's ditch the Gatorade, even the sugar-free varieties. Let's go for something a little healthier. Do not fast. Do not skip breakfast before you go out and play. That's just a recipe for decreased performance on the court. And don't skip your protein post-game. Remember, we are breaking down muscle as we're out there moving explosively on the court. We want to replenish those amino acids, like I said, in that 60 to 90 minute post-game. Now, here are some supplements that might help. I just mentioned creatine. I always put creatine in my protein powder post-game. This is great for power, recovery, muscle preservation. And creatine comes out of the bodybuilding world and the strength athlete world. That's where it really got its start. But more and more research is coming out that creatine has got fantastic benefits for healthy aging, for memory, for anti-dementia, things like that. So creatine, one, I recommend for everybody. Don't need to overcomplicate it. 5 grams of creatine monohydrate, again, with your protein powder after a workout. It doesn't really matter where you put creatine, before a workout, after a workout, doesn't matter. But 5 grams of creatine monohydrate, great suggestion to help. Again, electrolyte powders, I personally use LMNT, but some, and that's the letters LMNT, but some sort of electrolyte powder as opposed to a sugary Gatorade type drink. It's really smart for those, especially those long, hot days. But like I said, in the middle of winter, when I'm playing, I've always got my electrolytes with me. Protein powder, it's convenient. It's useful when real food isn't available, especially those of you guys that are traveling to play. I am a protein powder advocate. I have a good high quality protein powder, and I have that after every workout, after every single pickleball game, whether it's a rec game, whether it's a tournament, doesn't matter. I've got my protein powder. And then finally, you might want to consider experimenting with low doses of caffeine before you play. There is some science out there that suggests that it can enhance performance. Now, I personally don't use caffeine before a game. I tend to be pretty amped up anyway, but I know a lot of people that love a little bit of caffeine. But again, you would not want to experiment with this on tournament day, but experiment with a little, a half a cup of caffeine or some sort of a pre-workout energy drink before your next rec play. You can kind of play around with that. Some people find that it messes with their gut or it makes them feel too jittery. I like to be calm and present and focused when I walk on the court. And additional caffeine in my system takes away from that, doesn't add to that, doesn't mess with my gut at all. But I personally don't use that, but I know people that use caffeine before play, and they talk about how it makes them a better player. So certainly something that might help, that you might want to consider experimenting with. So here is your Pickle Fit challenge this week. I want you to do an audit on your current fuel strategy. Are you eating with the intention of playing better, or are you just winging it? And I want you to try that pre-play formula. Next time you hit the court, think about, okay, I want to get some good high-quality carbs and a little bit of protein in before I hit the court. I want you to experiment with some intra-match snacks, and especially if you're doing longer or more intense sessions. Whether that's rec play, training, tournament. Well, no, I don't want you. Sorry, let me back up. I do not want you to, as I previously said, experiment with intra-match snacks during tournaments, but I do want you to experiment during your rec play. And I want you to be really intentional about prioritizing your post-match protein and carbs because your recovery really depends on this. And remember this, your performance on the court is directly tied to what you do off the court. That's what this podcast is all about, and that includes what's on your plate. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to be intentional and be consistent and get it dialed in. All right, folks, that's a wrap for today's episode of the Pickle Fit Podcast. If you've enjoyed this show, do me a favor. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share this with your pickleball crew. Let's help more players over 50 stay strong, mobile, and off the injured list. Got a question, topic idea, or just want to say hey? Shoot me a message. I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at coach@mypicklefit.com. Until next time, stay strong, stay mobile, and whatever you do, don't skip leg day. This is Coach Kevin signing off. I'll see you on the court.